HeyIt'sTia and welcome back to my channel. And I haven't been posting for a very long time. I've been busy with a lot of stuff. What I mean by stuff is college and things like at college were getting a bit messed around and stuff. So in this video I thought I would do something more about who I am as a person, and as you can tell by the title of this video, I'm going to be doing a video of living with autism, or living with autism, because I am autistic. I have Autistic Spectrum Disorder, which is ASD, and I'm on the mild spectrum. I'm mild, I'm borderline. What the hell was that? Oh my god, that scared me for a second because I thought, oh god. Anyway, so I am mildly autistic, and I thought I would talk about how that, how I cope with it, how it affects me in life, and all that other stuff. So let's get to all that. Let's get to it. So when growing up, before being tested for autism, my parents noticed that there were some things about me that were very different. Like, not being that, I would say at the age, you know, around like an age where a child will begin to talk. Around the ages of 1 or 2, I was kind of not quite, well, I was like talking, but I wasn't quite like saying full sentences as any other 1 or 2 year old would be at that age, but then they thought, okay, you know, some are a bit slower, and they thought maybe I would outgrow that and be saying full sentences. But then also how I would react to things, like if someone told a joke, it's like I wouldn't get it, and I would either I wouldn't get the joke and I'll get worked up and I'll be like, what? Like getting worked up, frustrated, angry. So there are a lot of problems I had, and then around the age of 5 or 6 my parents had me tested for autism, and like they had me like in a room with this lady who was like asking me questions, getting me to do things, and I did not know I was being watched by a little camera like that was in the room, probably in like a corner, you know, like up there. Not in this room, I mean in the room that I was being tested for at the clinic. And then with all those tests and that, they got back to my parents and said, your child has autism, and my parents were a bit worried. Like my mum was like very worried about how I about like being told like your daughter has autism, and it's like, oh my god, like worrying that would I have a normal life like anyone else. But then they said, but it's like luckily she's borderline and she'll have mostly like a normal life. So that's when they were relieved that I wasn't severely autistic. But so moving on, they get the diagnosis, I'm autistic, and then when I was like being told that I had autism by my mum, I was very young, so I would have been about 6 or 5, so I would have known from a very young age that I was different. But my mum would use the word different, and that was like the same, well, my mum, she'll use that word different. Instead of saying you're autistic, she would use the word different, but then later on she said you're autistic. And it's like, okay, that's part of who I am and why I'm so different. Like I kind of knew deep down that I was different by like seeing all the other children around the age of 5 and 6. You hear them like, you know, like playing around, screaming, being very loud. I was very quiet, not doing much. And people at school, honestly, around that very young age, you know, children wouldn't understand these things. But later on, when it got to the later years in primary school, that's when I was like 10 or 11, that's when people really saw I was different, and that's when I was really feeling very different at that time. And I did have friends, so I wasn't alone, but it was kind of hard for them to understand why I was so different. I tried to explain, but it's very difficult when you're explaining to someone who doesn't quite understand autism, but you try to get them to understand, and it's very difficult. But moving on from the primary school, so some things, it's like the break from the schools and that, I'm gonna explain some of these symptoms of ASD or Autistic Spectrum Disorder, however you like to refer to it as. And so it's a condition, I would say. I don't want to say it's a mental illness or anything. That just sounds a bit like, you know, like saying what, you're mental with autism. Like, no. So how it affects me and others that would be autistic, like I am, with the same kind of autism, you would, like, well, if that's I personally, it kind of affects like how that part of your brain like processes things, how you react to things is like very different. And I had a lot of problems with that, and showing emotions, like not being able to fully understand my emotions back then when I was very young, but now I fully understand my emotions and understand a joke and all that. Because people that have autistic spectrum disorder tend not to understand a joke that well, or don't seem to get a joke. And also, not only that, it affects like emotions and how you process things, it's also like how you interact with others, like your communication skills, your social skills. And like I find, like, being that young and throughout school, and that I found it very hard mixing around with others that were not autistic and that were, you know, fine. But it's like some would understand that I'm autistic and some wouldn't. Some would take the mick out of it, and others would be like, well, just like leave me, like don't want to even go near me, thinking it's a disease, you're gonna catch it. I'm just gonna make this clear. Autism is not a disease. You do not catch autism. It's not a disease that anyone's child will catch. You don't need to be vaccinated for it, and you most certainly do not need to go wearing protections and things like, I'm going to wear a mask when I'm near an autistic person so I don't catch their autism. Like, no, as I said earlier, it's not a disease that you can catch. It is something that someone is born with, and they can't help it, and it's going to be with them for the rest of their lives, and it's not one of those things that are going to go away one day like a disease. It's going to stay with them their whole lives. But, however, I'm just going to make this clear. It is not a contagious disease. Some people like to say it is, but guess what, it isn't. So that is that. And back to how I'm affected with it in school. It's very, like, secondary school actually, I have better explanation on that. So secondary school, quiet child, yes, and mixing with other people, that was difficult. I did have friends eventually. It took me longer to make friends than someone else without autism does. You know, you get people that make friends so quickly, like on the first day of school, like I've made tons and tons of new friends, and it's like, whoa. Like me, I'm like, well, first day I made like probably just one. But you know, it shouldn't be anything that you should be like competing with, you know? But it doesn't mean that when someone's autistic they're not going to have any friends. They do have friends, it just takes them longer to, like, how do I say this, like, it takes them longer to adjust to the people in their environment and to get to know people and how to approach people as well. Like, first year of secondary school I may have had hardly any friends, and that was very hard for me, but around year 8 I eventually made some friends. It just took me that bit longer to get used to a new environment and area and the people around it, so it took me longer for that. And also when communicating, it's kind of hard. Like, I try my best to make full eye contact with the person I'm talking to, because when people who have ASD, it's like eye contact it's something that we try our best with eye contact. We try to make the best eye contact we can, and you know, it's hard. I try my best with my eye contact, but then some people tend to notice that the eye contact's a little bit off, and they think that person is being rude when they're not. It's just they're trying their best to make full eye contact with you. It's just that part of them is just finding it a bit harder to make that full eye contact, and that was with me. Like, it was harder for me to make that full on eye contact with this person I'm talking to, and also how it can also, not only that, it can affect communications and how you deal with things in life. It did very partly affect how my learning. It affected my learning partly. It gave me a bit of a learning problem, like learning difficulty, where I had to have like the task or whatever we were doing. Let's say maths, for instance. You know, I'm really bad at maths. Have to redo it again at college, but that's okay. You know, because I know I'll get there eventually. But like with maths, like you get a question, and let's say the question says, how many? Trying to think of a maths question that I struggled with. Like find 25.8% of find 25.8% of, let's say, £48 and 56 pence, and then they say once you find it, now go and simplify your answer. Like with that's something I struggled with at school, which is all this complex kind of like maths, not complex maths, I mean like all those big questions that have all that writing, how they're worded. Struggled with that. And like someone who like isn't autistic like could understand it just like that, where for someone who is autistic it can take a bit longer to understand the question and what they're supposed to be doing. That's when they'd have to have it explained like the second time round to fully understand it, or explained in a way that to their understandings. But it doesn't mean anyone is stupid. It doesn't mean that person with autism is stupid. It basically just means that that part of me who had that problem with things like questions and having to have them re-explained, that part of me that had that problem just meant I had to look back at the question and reread it again, have it re-explained again to fully understand it and to what I'm supposed to be doing. And that is kind of like how it can affect someone's learning. But you know, other than that, I still did good in maths. You know, I would just say a pass, even though it's not the best pass ever. But you know, I'm okay with redoing it again at college, because I know that I can get a stronger pass redoing it again at college. You know, it's okay. But English, you know, past that, I don't have to do that again, which I feel so like oh my god, like I even when I got those results from my GCSEs and I opened up the envelope nervously thinking I'm going to do English and maths again at college, I just know it, and I thought, oh, don't have to do English again because I passed it, got a grade C. So that is like that with the learning. Growing up with it was hard, and like throughout that I knew I felt different. Like I felt different, and especially after being told by my mum, my dad, and like saying you have autism, you know, it's been very tough. And like how people would come to treat me like that with autism, you know, you get some people that understand it, and then some people with baby talk, and that just, no, that annoys me when someone would baby talk an autistic person. And I've had that kind of issue where someone would say something like, let's say hello for instance, someone would be like, hello, and then with someone who isn't autistic, it'd be like, oh hi. It's like, wow, that person clearly doesn't understand autism. They just think someone autistic has the mind of a child by talking to them like a baby. They don't. So just to finish off this video, so knowing that there isn't really a cure for autism, and if there was, and let's say for instance, if there was a cure for autism and tons of parents with very young autistic children were giving their child this cure, and then that child is cured, no longer has autism, and can go on to living, an extreme, and can go on to living like anyone else who hasn't got autism. Now let's say this person who invented a cure for autism came to me and offered me the cure. Would I take it? No. Like, obviously there's not a cure for autism in reality, but if there was, I would still not want it. Why I wouldn't want the cure is because it's like, I wouldn't be me, I wouldn't be myself. It's almost like if you were to give an autistic person a cure to get rid of their autism for good, it's like you're kind of taking away that part of who they are by doing that. And if there was a cure for that, I wouldn't want it, because I wouldn't want to get rid of a part of who I am. Because like with autism, it's like, it's part of who I am, it's part of me, it's how I am, part of my personality, and that, and what makes me different, and what makes other people with autism different and unique, So that's like I wouldn't want the cure. Like, if any of you guys that are autistic and you're watching this, or maybe you're a parent who has an autistic child, or you may be someone who has a friend who's autistic, or a sibling that's autistic, or maybe you have a parent who is autistic and you're watching this, like, maybe ask them the question saying, if there was a cure for autism and a doctor offered it to you, would you take it? Would you take the cure, or would you reject it? Just like curiosity, just to see, like, would you take it or not? And also on Twitter, there are these people called Generation Rescue on Twitter, and they're really amazing. They like go to help. They support people with autism and that, and they do like fundraising and that. And I think that's really amazing. Trying to get the world to all understand autism and how it affects people. I think that's really great. And so yeah, so that is it. That is my video on autism, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, then give it a big thumbs up, and and give it a big thumbs up, and hit the subscribe button and notification bell if you don't want to miss out on these videos, and if you want to get something better. And I'll see you guys with my next video. Whenever that will be, I don't know. I might decide to post another vlog, or I don't know, I'll see what comes to mind, or maybe another autism related video, but it depends on what comes to mind, and depends on what you guys, depends if you guys would want another video based on autism, if you want to like maybe get to understand, if you want to get to know more about it, then just let me know in the comments. So I'll see you guys next time.